This also helps in case of a market collapse, or if your build gets nerfed or something like that, you will minimize your losses because you were growing sustainably, you were taking profits, and you were just doing things slowly but surely. Hey YouTube, it's Stark here, and today I'll be talking about the top 8 mistakes I think people make when breeding in Axie Infinity. Some of the concepts we'll be touching on are a little complex, and I will be making follow-up videos about it, don't worry. Now, if that kind of content excites you, please leave a like and subscribe so you'll be able to learn more in my follow-up videos. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. Mistake number 1 is stepping into the marketplace without having a browser extension that enables you to see the recessive genes of Axies. This is what it looks like on the marketplace right now if you don't have an extension, and if you're looking at an inventory you can't see anything. One of my favorites is Freak's Axie extension. He's an OG and he built a very good tool. Sadly, since they've done the marketplace revamp for Origin, it only shows up here when you're looking at an inventory from this page, but when you hover over here you can see the recessive genes D, R1, R2. But when you go and you click on a specific Axie, it looks like this. So when you're browsing for Axies, it doesn't cut it. So I've started using another app called Axie Dex, and as you can see, it's really cool. And when you hover over it, you see the cards. This is quite extensive, and there's a pro version where there's a lot of features that I don't have yet because I'm not using it. But if that's something you want to do, you can do that to support the creator. Also, there are some cool community tools that are not web browsers that you can use to help you with breeding. Axie Tech is my personal favorite. The price of every breed here, you can click on multiple, however many you want to breed. It gives you the average price. It's just very easy to use. There's a breeding simulator. You just pop in the Axies and you get a combination of stuff. There's a breeding calculator if you're trying more complex stuff. Very easy to use and straightforward. A lot of people also use Axie Zone, which is a tool that's been around for a long time. Mistake number 2 may be a controversial one, but here it is. Buying printer Axies. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, a printer Axie is 100% perfect down to the R2. So why is it not the best way? Because you're still going to get very, very good babies. It's just not the most efficient way to get what you're looking for. If you look at this build here, Reflectile Pure Reptile, that we all know and hate, this is the cheapest virgin pure printer on the market, $590. Now, if you look at virgins with 95% purity or higher, you see that's $140, 3 times cheaper with just a few recessive differences. Now, I'd rather breed 2 of these together with a slightly lower chance of getting a good Axie rather than spend enormous amounts of money breeding 2 printers together. If you can get cheap printers, I'm all for it. Just know that the most efficient way to do it is to use almost perfect. Never breed perfect Axies. You want to sell them to a sucker who doesn't watch this video. The market values them higher than what I think they're worth to breed. That is, unless you're breeding something very specific. You're just starting off the farm and you just want it to do well. But usually once you've got your farm set up and running and you do a printer, I like to sell it. You get a nice injection of capital into your breeding farm. Now, mistake number 3 that I see quite a few beginners do is that they're not decisive enough with their breeding farm. You need to be in 2 different modes when you're breeding. You can take your time when your Axie is incubating. You have 5 days to take your time, look at the market, make decisions, and this is when you should be doing all the stuff that takes time. But when your Axie hatches, within the hour, you need to be breeding to launch the next cycle. Every minute, every hour, every day that you waste here at the end of a season could mean 1 less cycle that you got out of breeding. So very important to be decisive. When your egg is incubating, you can sell the parents, make sure you sell them, gather the resources you need for the next cycle, have that all ready for the next cycle you're about to launch. Mistake number 4 when breeding in Axie Infinity is something that I did a lot when I was starting out, and that is overextending in breeding. That means that you're stretching yourself too thin, breeding too many Axies. Now, that can be within the one farm. You're breeding too much and you're trying to grow your farm too aggressively, and that is not sustainable. Another thing also could be trying to breed too many different builds at once, and this is where it ties up to our last point. If you're breeding too many things at once and you're tied up with liquidity, when your eggs hatch, sometimes you won't have the necessary liquidity to breed on. So you want to keep it simple, you want to keep it small, you want to keep it sustainable so that you can grow your farm and you'll be okay. This also helps in case of a market collapse, or if your build gets nerfed or something like that, you will minimize your losses because you were growing sustainably, you were taking profits, and you were just doing things slowly but surely. You do not want to be caught in that scenario when you're stuck for resources and you need to breed, because then you'll be forced to liquidate quality Axies at below their worth just to be able to keep breeding, or else you'll be paralyzed, and it's very stressful and you'll end up losing money most likely. Mistake number 5 is not breeding the right amount of times. Let me start off by saying that there is no right amount of times. It all depends on what you're trying to achieve. But know that the more times you breed an Axie, the more expensive it gets. And so you want to be clicking on the 3 here on Axie Tech. You watch the average price. The more times you breed, the higher that goes. That's up to you to decide. When you're growing a farm and when you're starting out, maybe you want to be a bit more aggressive. You want to breed a 4th time. That's the cost of making sure that the line doesn't die off. Once your farm is set up and you've got stable numbers, maybe you breed a little less to maximize your profit when you're selling. Not thinking about this is a mistake. It's a complex concept, I think. By the way, if you disagree with this, or if you disagree with how I do things, post in the comment below how you calculate how many times you breed. I'm interested to learn how other people like breeding. I would recommend breeding 3 to 4 times if you're trying to get something. 5 to 6 is really if you know what you're doing and you're breeding something high-end that you know you'll have buyers for. But as you can see here, $172 or $268 when the floor right now is $11. You have to really know what you're doing. 3 to 4 I recommend if you don't know what you're doing, but keep an eye on it and think about it. Look at your margins. Look at your quality of your farm. What are your odds of getting good Axies? All of that good stuff. Mistake number 6 is not knowing when to liquidate your farm. Breeding Axies by nature is inflationary, and so Axies tend to lose value over time the more they're bred. If you don't have a strong plan on what you're doing, you will lose money. You need to know when to sell your Axies and when to liquidate a farm. Let's look at these ones, for example. The Goda Double Anemone Nemo. That was a very prized and popular build, and now they're worth $20. When you're breeding something that is popular, you need to have a plan on when to exit, whether it's deciding what price you start liquidating at, and then you move on to something else. The next thing that no one's breeding that you know you will sell. I think a lot of this has to do with ego. You had an idea, you started it out, and you want to get even again. The thing is, in Axie, a lot of the times it's better to just cut your losses and move on and try to make money on the next farm. We all have failures. I've bred a lot of farms that I've lost money on, and you just hope that the ones that do succeed end up covering for those losses, which in my case I've done okay with. But not gonna lie, there's been quite a few farms, either it's ideas that I just started out, done a few cycles and noticed that it's either not that strong or not enough people are wanting to buy it. You just cut your losses, move on, inject that liquidity into the next project. Mistake number 7 is not taking into account the opportunity cost of the tokens that you're burning to breed. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's look at this. 4 breeds, 16,200 SLP, it's $218. 2 AXS, $63, for a total of $280 in breeding costs. If you breed 4 times and you break even, and AXS and SLP pump, that means you would have probably been better off holding them and selling them when that pump happened. Now, if you do want to breed, all you have to do is keep that into account. It has to be in the equation when you're making decisions. I, for example, have been breeding with SLP all the way down in price. As we all know, the token has been going down. I've done okay, sometimes broken even, sometimes made a bit of money. But if one day SLP just 2x's because of a pump in the market, that means I would have been probably better off holding it for 6 months and selling it during that pump. If you still want to breed Axies, it's just something you have to keep into account. Last but not least, mistake number 8. It's not taking into account nerfs and potential nerfs that are about to happen. We don't really know for sure what will be nerfed, but sometimes you have a good feeling about it. When something is completely busted, there's a very high chance it's about to be nerfed. So that's where the complexity lies. Breeding broken stuff is where you make money because that's what people want to play. But it also means that as soon as the stuff gets nerfed, your farms are in danger of losing your money. Bear that in mind. Don't breed something busted at the end of a season. If you do, be very careful about it. And it's more of an advanced tip once you're getting into more complex farms. Now that wraps up the top 8 mistakes I think people make when breeding in Axie Infinity. If you want to share in the comments below which of those you committed, please do. We'll all have a laugh at your expense, and I will tell you if I did the same. Remember to leave a like and a subscribe if you made it to the end and you enjoyed the content. I'll be making a lot more content around breeding in Axie Infinity. If there's anything you want me to explain in particular, just say so and I will make a follow-up video. Thank you and see you around.